Well, hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hausman, and joining me today is, she's not a new rock star, but she's new to the position. She's the new manager of program development at PPAI. And when I asked her title, she was Professor JGR, Queen of the World, Jessica Gibbons-Rauch. Thanks.
All of promo.
all of promo. Jessica Gibbons-Rauch, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, Kirby, it's good. You were the first person who reached out to me and was like, hey, can we have a conversation? I'm like, 110%. Yes.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so glad. So let's dive in. Like you're like new to this position, and can you talk a little bit about, I mean, I said your title, but can you talk a little bit about what the new position is and what sort of drew you to it?
For sure. So this is actually a brand new position for PPAI. So what it is kind of taking the education professional development department and making it almost two roles to make sure that we're able to hit the different kinds of learning styles and needs that people have. And especially with the work that I do at Northern Illinois University, where I've already have you tagged for one of my final presenter reviewers.
Awesome.
There's a difference between in-person events and the way that we educate and we develop versus digital. So PPI has really doubled down on the idea that we need these options, and we need to be able to do them on demand. They need to be updated. They need to be, appropriate in the moment, ready to go, and also changing the learning styles. So creating this new position really makes it so that we can focus in on that digital transformation of this department. So really, as soon as I saw it, there's no one in the industry quite as qualified as me, because I'm a little weird. I used to say JGR, it's complicated was my title. I have that marketing background. That's a lot of what you and I have talked about in the past is that marketing background, as well as having been on the distributor side for 15 years beforehand. So I have been in the trenches. I have been a service provider, but I've also been a distributor. I have so many friends who are suppliers, and I kind of see their struggles. And having this unique background really gives me an opportunity to make sure that whatever we're presenting is relevant. And like I said, what I'm doing at Northern Illinois is I'm bringing classes that are taught in person. I'm putting them onto a digital environment. So it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
And again, makes me very oddly, uniquely qualified.
That's cool. That's cool. So obviously there's a lot to tackle, especially, so it's a new position, you're new to it. So there's a ton of different projects, I'm sure. But what project or what part of the position are you most excited about getting into?
Well, it's been about 2 weeks, and I'm already like, why am I not having done everything that I want to do? So I've had to do that. Let's pull back and be like, okay, so what is manageable now? What is future Justin going to do? But a lot of what I'm focusing on now is on building a good foundation. So going back through all of those courses, checking, are they relevant? Are they not relevant? And how can I improve them? How can I re-record them? How can I shorten them? I don't know about you, but last time I had to sit through like a 90-minute webinar, I think I had to come back at it about 4 times. I'm like, I can't just sit still this long.
And that's if you're really committed.
Right. I'm like, no, I have to do this. But really making that assessment so that we can make sure that, especially the certification, everything's relevant. I mean, I'll be honest, I had my CS and I let it lapse because I didn't feel like anything was relevant for me. And I don't want anyone to feel that way going forward. I've had people ask me, like, what is the certification? And I think that it's so important for us to be constantly developing and constantly learning new things. So we want to make sure that we have that core group of things that anybody who's coming into the industry, anyone who's been in the industry can take over, but then also making sure we have regular content being added to keep it interesting, to get it spicy. Because I want people to come back and say, hey, this is the marketing or mastermind, and I want to learn about something that's relevant to what I do. There's something there for you. My goal, long-term goal, is that anytime anyone wants to know anything, the first place to go is PPAI. And we might not know. And that's cool. We'll get you where you need to go. But just to have us be like the very first line of, if I need to know something, I'm going to ask them first.
That's awesome. That's cool. Okay. So you and I, we've known each other for a bit now. And, I believe everything needs marketing, right? Especially something new like this. So if you're going to be updating and improving in your position, how do you get the word out?
So this is where the marketing background really comes into play.
Right.
But where a lot of people say, oh, marketing, you must be graphics. No. I'm the analytics and the data side of marketing. So I'm also big on processes. So a lot of what we're going to be doing is whenever something is new is coming up, how are we distributing it out to social media, making sure people are aware, giving them a taste so they want to come back and learn more, and kind of have that combination of short form and long form. Like we were saying with the attention span, if we can get a couple of things up that are short, maybe you're going to want to come back and look at more information. The other thing I want to do is celebrate more of our certifications. So when someone messages me and says, hey, I just got my mass, I want to shout it from the rooftops. Like everybody should know, like, hey, you just got this. This is a lot of work. And really making that into a regular process to make sure that we're getting that kind of recognition. Not everything that we're going to put on there is going to be the most interesting content in the world. We're all still going to have to learn about the things that we might not be as interested in, but are very important, like product safety. It's very important and it's required for everybody. But at least if we can make it in kind of a fun way and get people interested, I mean, that's the goal. But being able to have that constant flow on, so I want people to interact on social. I want to follow who people want to know more from. I want to know who's interesting out there. I want to know what subjects people want to learn. And I know that they might not even know what they want to know yet. So I'm even talking to our media department on how do we check SEO? What people are people searching for? How do we tie that into what we're talking about? So even if you didn't tell me you were super interested in how to create a great PO, we should all be interested in that, by the way. But you're searching those keywords outside of our website. How do we pull that in? So that's the marketing part of it, where it is the analytics and things. And we're going to be looking at new ways that we can communicate things to people, kind of that idea of, if you liked this class, you might like that class. How do we make sure people are aware? Taking all that knowledge of stuff from building e-commerce stores, really, and building it into the new product is content. So it's still a product, still needs to be marketed the same way.
Yeah, one of the pieces I've seen people doing is they will take it's like reverse engineering longer form content. So one of the people I follow a lot is Alex Hormozy, and so he starts with any idea he has, he puts it on Twitter. So in other words, in 140 characters, he says something that is either provocative or interesting, and then the more play it gets, the more likely he is to create a longer form video around it. And that's an interesting concept to me, right? Like puts out something short form, whether it's a graphic, whether it's a quote, and then see what resonates with the audience. That would be an interesting way to kind of reverse engineer some of the long form stuff.
Absolutely. And I know that Jill, who's my partner in crime here at PPAI, and I are going to be working very closely together because she's working on the events and in-person education. And how do we tie our two halves together? So if something is really resonating in person, then, well, maybe we need to do a digital follow-up. Or if something's really just taking off on digital, how do we do it in person? Or how do we make it so that you do part of it here and part of it there? I'm so glad that I have such an amazing team to be working with so that we can make sure that we're being able to be relevant to everyone, and also addressing their own learning style. If you don't want to come to an in-person event, and some people don't, that's totally fine. We're going to meet you where you are.
That's cool. So that actually leads nicely into my final question. So this has been great. So, obviously I know you are working not in Dallas, right? Like, so,
correct.
There's plenty of talk around, got to come back to the office, hybrid, remote work. How do you plan to manage your time and do all of that you need to do?
That is always a moving target, especially depending. People have different preferences and lifestyles. I've been remote for a while. When I was at Zoom Catalog, the entire workforce is remote. And you can still build those relationships even if you're not in the office. So one of the things, there's a few of us at PPAI that are remote, and we actually have our own channel on Teams, which is the PPAI's preferred software. And we're having a constant chatter and having that conversation going where, it's just like if we were sitting next to each other, but, slightly less intrusive because I get a little chatty. And I think sometimes they can come back and see whatever random meme. I'm like, oh yeah, what's your coffee today? But being able to have those moments, Jill, every morning I try to message her and be like, hey, I hope you have a great day. Just, because I'm not there, I want to remind them that I'm still here. And I'm going to be able to bring that to PPAI too, because I think it's important to be able to service people who are remote, who are in person, but I am loving this kind of like hybrid in the middle area where I get to go to Dallas and be in person and then come home and walk my daughter to school every day and go be a brownie leader. That does mean that sometimes I might be, I call it like a hyper focus mode. Anybody who's a little ADHD understands this method, where you're so into it, you can't stop. So I might have those days, and I warned Lindsay, I'm like, you might get messages from me in the middle of the night. Don't feel like you have to respond. Like that's okay.
Yeah.
But then there's other times when you're like, hey, I think I just need a minute to like not, and you can go, go for a quick walk or whatever.
Yeah.
But it does depend. Some people prefer to be in person. Some people like to be remote. It just depends on what their preference is. I love that. Just like learning styles, we can address everybody's needs.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it because for the most part, we are all on location. And it's not necessarily, it's just the way that we have done it. And then when the pandemic hit, I was good with people working from home, but it seemed like our crew wanted to come back. It wasn't, there wasn't like some mandate. But then my daughter's in Colorado. And so we're working with that. How do we maintain, not only different time zones and all that stuff. And so I'm constantly on the lookout for best practices so that I can be doing it, making sure I'm inclusive and all that sort of thing. So I'll be anxious to be learning from you as you do this.
Well, and I highly recommend any kind of Slack or Teams conversations, chats, so that you have that ongoing conversation. Especially millennials, we're used to just texting all the time. It's very similar.
Good point.
I always love a good GIF. So if I can't put a little GIFy action in there, I'm not going to be as much fun. But I actually found that with the classroom was the hardest because we have people in all different time zones, specifically, like you mentioned, and it's how do you figure out a meeting time?
Right.
When, somebody's on Pacific and somebody's in Eastern and we need to all, talk together. And
it's a challenge.
You just figure it out.
Yeah. Well, Jessica, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm excited about the new position and excited to dig deeper into it. So thanks so much for taking the time to do this.
And I'm really excited to come out to Coshocton, Ohio to go see the actual original printing press, which I didn't realize until this week was the same place you live. And I'm so excited. Like, this is how much of a nerd I am.
Oh, well, we're excited to have you. That's this is one of those things that I talk a lot about because I'm proud of it. You know what I mean? And so, we can't wait to have you here.
I'm so excited.
All right.
Thanks,
well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.